Am I the a-hole for not wanting my mom's boyfriend to give me a pelvic exam? Usually, I'm the type of person who keeps my head down and just tries to get through the day, but I am currently sitting in my room feeling like I'm losing my mind. I'm 18F, and I'm in that weird transition phase of finishing up high school while still being stuck under my mother's roof. My mom is 34F, which, if you do the math, means she had me when she was 16. Because of that, our relationship has always been less mother-daughter and more like we were roommates who happen to be related. We've always been close, or at least I thought we were, but lately, everything has felt like it's shifting in a way that makes me feel completely unsafe. We live in a very remote, rural area. To give you an idea of how isolated we are, my entire high school graduating class is basically the size of a large dinner party. There are literally 50 students in the whole school. Everyone knows everyone's business, which is why I try to keep mine private. Out here, the nearest town with an actual grocery store is 40 minutes away, and if you have a medical emergency, you're looking at an hour-long white-knuckle drive to the nearest urgent care. If you need a specialist like a gynecologist, you have to drive 2 hours into the city. It's a lot of flat land, dead cell zones, and silence. A few months ago, my mom started dating a new guy. Let's call the situation the age gap. He's 50. My mom is 34. I'm 18. The math already makes my skin crawl. He's older than my mom's oldest siblings. He's a generation and a half above me. But my mom was enamored. She kept talking about how mature he was and how he finally brought stability to her life. I tried to be happy for her, I really did. I know she's had a hard time being a single mom in a tiny town where people judge you for every mistake you made as a teenager. But from the moment he started spending nights at our house, the vibe changed. He moved in quickly. Too quickly. And almost immediately, I started feeling like a guest in my own home. Or worse, an object being watched. This guy has zero concept of boundaries. He doesn't knock. He'll just swing my bedroom door open while I'm doing homework or listening to music, claiming he just wanted to see if I wanted a soda, or needed to ask where the extra towels are. I've told him repeatedly to knock, and he always gives me this oily, condescending smile and says, "Oh, don't be so sensitive, we're all family here." But we aren't family. He's a guy my mom met a few months ago. And then there are the comments. He'll look at me while I'm in my pajamas and make weird jokes about how I'm finally filling out, or how I'm becoming a woman. And then he'll laugh and look at my mom to see if she's laughing too. Usually, she just rolls her eyes or giggles, which makes me feel even more isolated. I've started locking my door, but the lock is old and flimsy, and I can still hear him lingering in the hallway sometimes. It's a gut feeling, that deep, primal instinct that tells you someone is looking at you even when you can't see them. While all this was happening at home, my body started betraying me. About 3 months ago, my periods went from being a minor monthly annoyance to a total nightmare. I'm talking unusually heavy bleeding, the kind that makes you afraid to leave the house or sit on a light-colored chair. Along with that came these major, localized cramps that felt like someone was taking a serrated knife to my insides. It wasn't just period pain. It was debilitating. I've spent the last 3 cycles huddled over a heating pad, crying silently so they wouldn't hear me through the walls, taking way too much ibuprofen just to be able to stand up for 5 minutes. I knew something was wrong. I haven't seen a gynecologist since I was 15, and even then it was just a quick checkup. I'm 18 now, and with these symptoms I knew I needed a real pelvic exam, and probably an ultrasound. I was terrified it might be endometriosis or cysts. I finally worked up the courage to talk to my mom about it. I sat her down and explained that I was in a lot of pain and that the bleeding was getting scary. I told her I needed an appointment. My mom's first reaction wasn't concern. It was stress. She started complaining about the insurance. We're on a high-deductible plan through her work, and she kept saying how the copay for a specialist would be astronomical and how we couldn't afford the gas money for a 4-hour round trip to the city right now. She made me feel like my health was a financial burden she didn't want to carry. She told me she'd look into it, which usually means she's going to ignore it until it goes away. But it didn't go away. The next day, I was in the kitchen trying to make some tea for my cramps when she came in, looking way too excited. She had this look on her face like she'd just won the lottery. "I have the perfect solution," she said, leaning against the counter. "I was talking to my boyfriend about your situation, and he said he'd be happy to do your checkup right here at the house." I almost dropped my mug. I stared at her, waiting for the punchline, but she was dead serious. That's when she dropped the bombshell. It turns out her 50-year-old boyfriend used to be a board-certified gynecologist. She'd mentioned he was in medicine before, but I thought he was a tech or something. No, he was a doctor. Specifically, a doctor who had his license yanked away by the board a few years ago. I asked her why he lost his license. She waved her hand dismissively, like she was talking about a parking ticket. "Oh, you know how these boards are." It was some administrative nonsense, a total misunderstanding. He's still got all the knowledge, though. He's a pro. I felt a wave of nausea that had nothing to do with my period. She explained that since he has all his old equipment in storage, speculums and everything, he could just do a full pelvic exam on me in the guest room. She said it would save us the $150 copay and the 2-hour drive. She framed it as this incredible, generous favor he was doing for me. I looked at her and said, "Mom, absolutely not. There's no way I am letting your boyfriend anywhere near me like that." I tried to be firm but calm. I explained that it was a massive boundary violation. I told her that he isn't a licensed doctor anymore, which means there's zero accountability. I told her that the idea of a man I barely know and who already makes me feel uncomfortable performing an invasive internal exam on me in our house is the stuff of horror movies. My mom's face transformed. The helpful mask slipped, and she became instantly furious. She started screaming that I was being insulting and self-centered. She told me that I was assuming the worst about a man who has been nothing but kind to us. She said I had deeply hurt his feelings by suggesting he wasn't trustworthy or professional. "You're essentially calling him a pervert," she yelled at me. "He's a medical professional who is trying to help you for free because he knows we're struggling, and you're acting like he's some creep in a trench coat." I tried to argue. I told her that if he was so professional, he'd know that you never, ever perform a pelvic exam on a family member or a girlfriend's daughter, especially without a license and in a non-clinical setting. But she wouldn't hear it. She said I was being a judgmental princess and that I was too good for the help my family was offering. The argument escalated until she told me I was grounded. She took my phone, disconnected the Wi-Fi, and told me I wasn't allowed to leave the house except for school. She said I was being punished for maliciously slandering her partner. She told me I needed to stay in my room and think about my attitude until I was ready to apologize to him and accept the exam.
So here I am.
I'm in my room. My stomach is in knots from the pain, and I'm terrified. I can hear them laughing in the living room right now. I feel like I'm being hunted in my own home. Every time I hear footsteps in the hallway, I freeze, wondering if he's going to check on me again. I feel violated just by the fact that they discuss my anatomy and my checkup without my consent. I feel like my mother has sold my safety for a $150 copay. I'm not crazy, right? It's not petty to refuse to let a delicensed, creepy older man perform a pelvic exam on you in a guest bedroom. I feel like I'm being gaslit into thinking I'm the one being gross for having a boundary. I'm scared to sleep, I'm scared to shower, and I'm scared of what happens when my mom decides that grounding isn't enough to make me comply. Am I the asshole for standing my ground and not wanting her boyfriend to do the exam? Update. The day everything escalated didn't start any differently from the last few weeks. School was the same, quiet and small, the kind of place where nothing really happens and everyone pretends that's normal. I went through my classes, kept to myself, and counted the hours until I could go home, even though home hasn't really felt like somewhere I want to be lately. When I got back, I knew something was off before I even put my bag down. The house was too quiet, but not in the usual way. It felt staged, like people were waiting for something. My mom was sitting in the living room, already crying, and he was standing next to her like he belonged there, like he had some kind of authority in the situation. That alone made my stomach drop. What followed didn't feel like a conversation. It felt like something that had already been decided without me. My mom was emotional in a way I haven't seen before. Not just upset, but convinced. She was talking like she had already accepted a version of events that didn't involve me telling the truth. She said that he had figured out what was wrong with me. Not medically, not in any real sense, but based on what he claimed were signs. According to him, the bleeding and the pain weren't something like a hormonal issue or something that needed an actual doctor. Instead, he told her it must be the result of sex. Not just sex, but somehow too much or too rough, as if that's even how any of this works. It didn't make sense. It didn't match reality. It wasn't even medically accurate. But that didn't matter because my mom believed it completely. He backed it up just enough to make it sound official, talking about his experience, acting like his past job gave him the right to make those claims. There was no actual explanation behind it, no logic, just confidence and tone. And my mom took that as proof. From there, it spiraled into accusations. She was convinced I had been hiding things, going out, seeing people, doing things behind her back. None of it was true. My life is school, a couple of friends, and going straight home. There isn't even room in my schedule for the kind of double life she was imagining, but once she had that idea in her head, everything I said just bounced off. The situation shifted quickly from concern to punishment. They had already decided that there needed to be consequences, and those consequences were laid out like rules I had broken instead of something they were making up on the spot. Being grounded was the least of it. Taking my phone, cutting off contact with friends, isolating me further, that was all part of it. Then they introduced what they actually planned to do, and that's when it stopped feeling like a bad argument and started feeling like something else entirely. They said there would be checks. Regular ones. Weekly. Framed as a way to make sure I wasn't doing anything they believed I was doing. It was described as something normal, something necessary, something that would continue until they decided I could be trusted again. It wasn't presented as optional. That was the moment everything became very clear. This wasn't about my health. It wasn't even really about control in the normal strict parent way. It was something more invasive than that, something that ignored the fact that I'm an adult and that I have any say over my own body. The fact that my mom agreed to it, that she was sitting there acting like this was reasonable, was the part that hit the hardest. It didn't feel like a disagreement anymore. It felt like she had handed over authority to him completely. After that, there wasn't really a discussion. They expected compliance. When I didn't agree, it wasn't treated as a boundary. It was treated as more evidence that I was hiding something. Since then, the atmosphere in the house has changed even more. It's tense, but also controlled in a way that's hard to describe. There's this expectation hanging over everything, like they're waiting for me to either give in or mess up so they can justify what they already decided. I've been trying to keep things as normal as possible on the surface. Going to school, coming back, staying in my room. I've been careful about what I say and how I react because anything can be twisted into something else right now. Even small things feel like they're being watched or interpreted. At the same time, I've been quietly thinking through what I can actually do. The biggest problem is that I don't have any independence yet. No savings, no car, nowhere I can just go for a few days. Living in a remote area makes that even harder. There aren't places within walking distance and there aren't many people nearby who I could just show up to unannounced. I've been considering options that buy time. Delaying, avoiding, making excuses if I have to. Anything that keeps things from escalating while I figure out something more solid. It's not a long-term solution, but right now it feels like the only immediate way to stay in control of what happens next. I've also started paying more attention to what resources might actually exist outside of this house. School is one of the few places where there are other adults around, even if it's a small environment. I haven't acted on that yet, but it's been on my mind more and more as things have gotten worse. The physical symptoms that started all of this are still there, which adds another layer to everything. The original issue hasn't gone away, and it still needs proper medical attention. That part hasn't changed, even if everything else around it has spiraled into something completely different. Right now, the situation feels like it's sitting on a deadline that I didn't choose. They've made it clear they expect things to happen soon, and that's what makes everything feel more urgent. I'm not agreeing to what they want. That hasn't changed. But figuring out how to hold that line while still being stuck here is where things get complicated. That's where things are at right now. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Daily Tales Update.